Hello again. In this video I'm going to create a pixel art scene using the similar style to Bob Ross. In case you don't know, Bob Ross is a painter that used to create these sort of beautiful landscape scenes, but he would knock them out in like 25 minutes or 30 minutes, and he would use all of these sort of shortcuts and cool techniques that didn't just apply to landscapes. That was just what you liked to paint. A lot of these techniques, if you use your imagination, can be used in anything else. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the same thing, and as I'm doing it, I'm sort of showing you techniques that you can potentially use on something else. Now, this is by no means, or any stretch of the imagination, a proper pixel art tutorial, because it's not based so much on pixel art. It's just the enjoyment of a smaller scale image and the fruition of a low res and how your kind of brain fills in the gaps for you. So we're going to start by doing a sky, and you'll panic already because I have my gradient button selected. So I'm going to pick a nice blue here, and I'm going to use my gradient from foreground to transparent to flood fill in the gradient from the top to the center of my painting. And there's my sky. Now I know what you're thinking, gradients in pixel art, please no. Well, not if you're a beginner though. Don't do them if you're a beginner. Don't let yourself be addicted to gradients. So I'm going to go to image mode and actually pick index color. And index color I'm going to change to local selective, choose three colors, and use my dither pattern instead of using diffusion or noise. I'm going to just use the pattern. Click OK, and now you have this sort of nice gradient with a dither pattern on your background. Now, unfortunately, in index mode, you can't use any more layers and you can't use any more colors. So I'm going to go back to image mode and RGB color. So for the clouds, which is my next step, I'm going to go in and choose my main 1 pixel brush, but make it bigger. So now I can actually do these shapes now, but I don't want to do like sort of these like cartoon clouds, right? What I want to do is I want to do sort of puffy clouds, pretty much like Bob Ross used to make. Now, we're not using Dan's index painting technique, which I urge you to look up and find because it's amazing. What we're going to do is we're going to create puffs of white circles, right? And then we're going to take our eraser and erase loads of them. Actually, I should make a new layer. So a new layer and paint those circles in. And just think about the shapes that you want for your clouds, because if you're just doing, circular clouds, it becomes very uninteresting very quickly. So now with the eraser, I'm going to cut away parts of that clouds because I'm actually trying to draw the rim light of the puffy aspects of the cloud. So by doing this, I'm creating the silhouette of what a puffy cloud would look like. I think it needs a little bit more here on the right just to become more balanced. And I think that's pretty much it for this one, right? So I'll do another one. I'll take my brush again, do a few more dots, and actually let's make the brush smaller in some parts. I can always, scrib a rounder shape like this. Eraser, and even if you're not sure what's happening at the bottom, don't worry, you're going to erase it anyway. So just focus on creating an interesting silhouette, something that you find is, appealing visually to some extent. So delete, make it a little bit again. Yeah, and I think those look cool. Okay, but I think they're very flat. Now what we can do is we can take that gradient from the background and actually use it on our clouds. So I'm going to copy the background, copy and paste it over the clouds, but lock them in a clipping mask. So right click, create clipping mask, and now the gradient is on the clouds. You can't see them because they're exactly the same color as the background, but if I pull my gradient up, you can kind of see the gradient showing up in the clouds. And if I'm honest with you, I actually think they'd look better if it was upside down. So I'm going to Control-T, right-click, and flip vertical. And then I'm going to move this up so that the bottom of the clouds is actually fading in with the sky, but the top of the clouds is brighter. Okay, that makes more sense to me. Now I'm going to make a new layer here. And with my lasso tool set with 0 feather and no anti-alias, I'm going to actually draw a mountain shape, okay? And this is something that Bob Ross used to do quite a lot. He loved mountains. And honestly, the way he did them, they're pretty much just Bob Ross mountains. So I'll take that. I'll move my selection up because I want to be able to fade. Actually, it's quite well where it is. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy the background, copy and paste. And I'm going to move this up. So let's delete this layer, we don't need it anymore. Now we have a mountain there, but again, it's the same color as the background. You can't see it. So with my levels, I can bring up the darks and you can see the shape of the mountain appear over there, right? Now, I don't like the way it looks at the top, so I'm going to lock the transparency, pick this blue, because I just care about the fading here at the bottom. Take this blue, and I'll just paint that over like that. So now it's just a silhouette of a mountain up there. I think it's too saturated. I'm going to make it less saturated, but I'm also going to make the darks a little bit darker. Again, more saturated, and less saturated actually. So there we go, and a little bit more, less saturation. There we go. So now we have this sort of dark, ominous mountain. And it's ominous because it's dark. So we're going to take, there's no light on it, there's no sun. It's like an evil place or something. So I'm going to take my lasso tool and draw what we think the light would hit. And we're just drawing shapes. And you can be quite erratic with this because the more erratic it looks, kind of the more like natural it'll be as well. And you can add some shapes here at the bottom. A little bit, well, not so much on that side. Light wouldn't hit that side that much. And now hide the selection, bring up our levels again, and just brighten that up, right? And that's sort of like a free mountain all of a sudden. Okay, so now I think it might be a little too high up. Maybe there. Okay, so here's where now we're going to build the tree line, and the tree line is going to be based on a round brush that's being squashed, right? And we're going to use that for clouds. You can go fancier. You can kind of go and make your own brush, the tip, but I'm just going to use this. Increase the spacing like that. And I'm also going to play around with the shape dynamics and I'm going to have a size jitter so that my tree line doesn't really look the same size. Now the size jitter is set to pen pressure as well so that I can draw and press a little more. And I'm actually going to take that away for now because I just want to do a shape. So I'm going to take the dark tone here on the mountain and I'm going to bring that down over to the greens a little bit more, but also to the gray a little bit more. So I got 64, 7B, 7B. And I'm going to draw a line a bit like this oval. Actually, I should make a new layer for that, so sorry for that. And I'm going to draw like a smile of clouds, which I guess it's something Bob Ross would say. Okay, something like that. Now you get this sort of nice, noisy texture here at the top. And I'm going to increase the size of the brush, but I'm also going to increase the spacing. Because I'm going to have a random taller tree here and there, but I don't want them to be like too close or anything like that. So let's hide again. So there you go. So a couple of taller trees, even though the spacing is too spot on. There we go. It's a little too tall there. Okay, so cool. Now we're going to lock the transparency of this layer. We're going to bring our spacing down again, and we're going to bring our size down again. And actually not just lock the transparency on a new layer. I'm going to pick a different, warmer green, more towards the yellow, something like that. And you can compare the previous color and the new one. You can kind of go like, well, this fits with what I want, or you can see it doesn't fit. And now I'm going to draw mostly on this side a couple of shapes like that. And this looks weird, right? But if I make a clipping mask, it now just falls within that shape. Now, what that means is that I have some spots here where I can add some light, and some spots where I can actually erase it. So I'm going to flood fill, and I'm going to actually remove some of these here just to make more separation in between the trees. Just delete, right? And this again is by no means proper pixel art techniques if you're going to be true to the pixel art heritage, but it's fun. It is quite fun to do because it's very relaxing. Now you take these two, you blend them together, and with your elliptical selection, you're going to make a line which is kind of like a water line of a lake. And now you take the top layer that you created, flip it vertically, and you put it underneath, right? And right now it doesn't really look like anything. You can kind of see the reflection there if you really push your mind. But if you take, let's say, just the second blue of the sky, maybe the blue of the sky, just take the blue of the sky, and on a new layer with a rectangular selection, flood fill that in with blue on a new layer. I keep saying new layer, but I forget making it. And then this one, we're going to bring it down to 60% opacity, and I think we should move them both down 1 pixel just to cover that little gap up. Okay, so now we have our mountain in the back, the clouds even further back, and all we've added with this transparency was 2 more colors that we didn't expect. Okay, so I'm going to take what usually Bob would refer to sort of like a sap green, which is a yellowish green that kind of resembles, you know, fresh like baby trees or something like that. And I'm going to create a near shape here that's going to be just some grass close to us. And I'm going to do it like that. And if I don't like the color, again, Bob used to mix it on the palette. You would be able to see the colors right there. I'm not. I'm sort of mixing them by eye, and then I'm painting them on the image. But I can always change it later. So a little bit more green, lots of transparency, and flood fill that in. And I can actually still take. Now let's undo. Let's take this color, undo, and now take this color, and use this one, and use the brighter one as a way to create this brighter blades of grass. So now we have depth in our grass. Okay, we do have very similar size, but it kind of looks like tall grass to me because of the way that how long the shadows get to be in some of these parts. Okay, so we're now really bright, fluffy grass. Now we need to make. I'm going to make a evergreen, but I'm also going to move my mountain to the left a little bit because I just think it will be better framed in the image. So let's go back up to the new layer. Let's take a dark green, pretty much like the pine trees in the back. Let's bring this down, but make it more saturated so that it holds some sort of vividness to it. The thing with objects in the distance is that they get more faded, they get more blue but less contrasting, while objects that are near to you actually keep a lot of that. So I'm going to set my pen pressure again to be controlling my size, and if I press down, you can kind of see where I'm going with this, right? So I'm going to make the size jitter a little, I'm just going to probably keep it. Let's do angle jitter so that we now also have things tilting up and down, or left and right a little bit. And what we can do is we can do multiple passes at this. So I'll start very lightly, again, very lightly. And I think I'm going to start higher up, right? And you can kind of go and do a double pass just to get that really nice shape. And it's almost like a free tree all of a sudden, right? And then we can lock the transparency and pick a different color. I'm going to go towards the saturation, so go this diagonal up, but also greener. I think it's better that we go greener. And we can now go in with a lock transparency on this layer, go in with the same brush, and mostly on the left side, create the warmer side of this tree. And if you really want, you can select just this area, hide the selection, and then make even brighter, more yellow, green. And again, it's just really if you want, because it's a high risk. And then just go in again. It doesn't look that good. So I'm going to increase the spacing and see if that works a little bit better. Yeah, you can kind of do something like that. Hopefully it'll be more interesting. I don't think it works because I don't think the trees are that glossy. And what I now want to do is I'm going to take this green here and go back to that vertical brush with a spacing a little bit smaller, but with a higher size jitter. And a smaller size, obviously. And I'm going to go take this dark green, let's hide this panel, and just drop in a shadow. It wasn't working because the selection was still active, and we need now a even darker green just to sell the idea that this is a shadow of this pine tree in particular. Now, Bob would do stuff like add a cabin, which was very popular in his videos. So I'm going to try really quickly with a selection to add a cabin just for you guys to enjoy. So I'm going to draw the silhouette of a cabin. And this is a big evergreen, okay? This is like Ted, was it Ted Benton? No, it's a guy that lived in Alaska all along and built this cabin. As a video on him on YouTube as well, which is quite enjoyable to see. So I'm doing a little bit of perspective here on the cabin as well. And I'm going to pick a color. Now Bob would do like dark browns. So I'm going to go for the browns, but I'm going to go for desaturated as well. And just flood fill that in with that shape. Oh no, the lasso tool was not set. The polygonal lasso tool was not set to anti-alias, or to not anti-alias. So I'm going to have to redo that shape again, which is fine. It doesn't take too long. I don't want to hold you up. There's other videos for you guys to see. So flood fill that in. Okay, now we'll take this shadow here, and on the grass, we're going to paint that shadow back in just to ground the cabin. And we're also going to go back to the cabin layer, take the lasso tool and draw a shape of where the light would hit. The same here as the roof. We're going to light the roof a little bit. And then with the levels, just brighten that up, right? And you can see that you almost right away carve the shapes out of this cabin. I'm going to select the bottom here, and I'm going to desaturate that by bringing the saturation down, probably lighten it up so that we can create a stone base. And the lines here don't really match, so I'm going to erase part of this. Okay, and there we go. And now we're going to do is take this dark tone and bring in my single pixel brush and draw a door. Actually, I should do this closer because it looks horrid. So we're just going to do a door. And this is the same material. I'm having a little thicker line here just to sell the idea that this is actually carved in. And a couple of planks wouldn't hurt, but this would probably be a log cabin, so the planks would be horizontal. But, you know, could also be vertical, why not? And now to really sell it, I'm going to go to the cabin. I'm going to select away with my freehand lasso tool. I'm going to select some of these lines, or some of the bottom here, and just erase from the cabin. And that just gives it those little pixels to poke up to look like grass strands. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys learned something from it. Take care, and I'll see you again.